Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Aussie writers and other creatives.
Hello, and I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content writer as well, and Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we're bringing you all kinds of tips, ideas, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
Hi Lynn, we're back. How's your week been?
Oh, pretty good. Super busy. Lots of stories about paint and tiles, as per usual. I think I'm doing a bit of a story about Newcastle at the moment and why you should go and live there in a project home.
Oh my gosh.
It's all exciting. It's all exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
What am I doing this week? I'm writing a lot of content for my careers client this week. But next week I'm back doing pieces for a bank client and updates for some small business clients. And also Rachel's List is like fully over the relaunch period now. So it's super busy and I'm really flat out with that as well. So today is one of our little shorter episodes, isn't it? Which is good.
It is. And I do think it's a really important topic for freelancers, because we're going to talk about following up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so few of us actually do this. And if we're not following up, we're leaving money on the table, aren't we?
We are, because I think sometimes it takes quite a bit of effort to make those initial sort of contacts and you get to a point. And if you have to keep starting again, it's a lot of wasted effort. So if you do a little bit of following up, you're actually taking advantage of work already done and money on the table, as you say. What do you like at following up?
I think I'm getting better. I think the advice is to follow up twice or even more than that, just sort of gently being in touch every so often. So you're front of mind in that prospect's mind when they do need a freelancer. So it makes really good sense to do it. But I think many of us will fall prey to this idea that we're annoying someone and that they just want you to go away. So that's exactly what we do. And it's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I think we're all a bit worried about being a pest. I mean, yes. Definitely. But we did ask the fab Brooke McCarthy, and we've had her on the podcast before about following up. And she's in the midst of a course and says people would rather do anything rather than follow up. So, and we've had a few threads about it in the Gold group, haven't we?
Yeah, I think there was one recently when a Gold member wondered what he was doing wrong. He'd get the leads coming to him, they'd have a conversation or an email back and forth, and he thought, it was all going to happen. He was in with a grin, and then he'd just hear crickets from the client. And we asked, are you following up? And he said, oh, no, he wasn't actually following up. He was waiting for the client to take that step and come back to him. So that's where we.
Because often they're really busy and they forget.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the onus is on us to take that step. And also I could say that it also brings it back into your own control and your own schedule. I do find the worst thing about following up is it's occasionally somebody will come back to you and then it's a mad scramble. So if you follow up at a time that suits you, you can say, actually, if you do want to go ahead with this project in the next week, I've got some availability. Because what happens is inevitably they come back to you in 10 days when you've got another project and it's all a mad scramble where you're doing two things at once. So following up helps put the control back in your court as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about some of the stats that Brooke shared with us, which are pretty eye-opening. I think these are from the Marketing Donut. So apparently 48% of salespeople never make a single follow-up attempt.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow. I know. Another 44% give up after one follow-up call, but widely believed that 80% of sales that you do as a freelancer require 5 follow-ups before that person will, come back to you, I guess.
Oh, wow. And also I was amazed to see the statistic that something like 60% of customers say no 4 times before they say yes. So what does that tell you?
That you have to annoy someone 4 times before they'll give in and chuck a project your way.
Yeah, basically, that's right.
So what is best practice for following up with a potential client? I mean, that's a really hard question to answer because every situation is so different. But what do you do in terms of following up?
I do a lot of different things. I think part of it depends on the relationship you have. If it's a new relationship, I usually might just do a gentle hi, just checking. I often actually say following up. So it doesn't feel like it's like salesy. A follow up is just say, hey, just checking that you got my proposal. Did you want to go ahead? I'm just sometimes I do something. I try and get some sort of sense of urgency. It doesn't have to be pushy, but just like I'm planning my schedule for the next month or my calendar for the next month. Just wanted to know if you still need this so I can put time aside for you, which is all accurate, because there's nothing I hate more than somebody coming back to me to say yes, like 2 weeks after I thought they would. And then suddenly I don't want to say no at that point, but sometimes it's really hard to put them in my calendar if I'm busy, because also we do know that I never really lock something in until I get that signed sort of contract, or also maybe some money, you know, a deposit or something. If they're a long-standing client, I'm a bit chattier and I probably will follow up a bit more often. And I might say, yep, did you still want to go ahead with that? I'm looking, you know, I might be a bit more honest, but I might follow them up more times. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I do a similar thing with I've got some space in my schedule coming up in the next few weeks. Did you want to go ahead with X, Y, Z? So that is a really good way to follow up, because it's just an easy way to let someone know that there's an opportunity for them to come back. But with me, like if it's a very new person who's approached me and I've gotten back to them with a quote, I leave it a day or two and then I email them with the subject line, just following up or following up. And if they don't reply to that, I might do one more email about 3 days later. And if there's no reply to that, I would leave it on that person, because they've found someone else or they're not interested. But if they do reply and they're open to occasional contact, I make a note or set a reminder to follow up with them sort of monthly, I suppose. But I was putting together notes for this episode, I was remembering when I used to do cold calling back in the early days of being a freelancer. And I used to cold call people and have a spreadsheet, much like our lead generation tracker in the toolkit. And I would record the response to my call. So if it was positive, or they said, oh, we'd love to use someone like you, but we don't have budget, or we just don't, we're not using anyone at the moment, I would consider that a chance to follow up. And I'd send them a little pack in the mail with business cards and a handwritten note. And then I would just follow up every month or so. So one success story from doing that was one of my first big freelance copywriting clients, Destination New South Wales. They became a client after I followed up about 4 times, and then they called me in for a coffee and hired me, and they were a client for 10 years. So yeah, it goes to show it does pay off.
Yeah, well, I've had similar stories. I'm getting more sort of better systems about following up. I mean, initially, a lot of people come to you and then I do proposals, or we have a couple of emails and it all goes quiet. One of the first things I used to do, as you know, Rach, this strikes fear into your heart, but I tend to never delete emails. So I think I've got 21,000.
I don't delete emails.
You file them.
I file them. Deleting them strikes fear into my heart.
Oh, okay. Well, I just have them all in my inbox. But sometimes
God, no, that is
sometimes
wrong.
I do if it's been quiet and I think I need to drum up some business. The first thing I do is go through a few emails of about 6 months ago, and then I have a look and see if there are any opportunities or follow-up things. So I find that following up 6 months later is really interesting. And I've had a few successes that way. So basically I go through and say, there might have been a proposal, and sometimes it's because they didn't have the budget, they didn't end up going with that project, all those sort of things. So it's very rarely related to me. And even though you think, oh, I probably came in too high, it's usually something about their internal stuff. So 6 months later, I find.
And that's really important to remember.
It is, isn't it? Because always we think it's us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then sometimes I go back and I say, oh, look, I sent a proposal to this landscaping company 6 months ago. I never heard. And I just do a thing. Hey, this popped up on my calendar again. I just wondered if you ever went to the project. Is there anything more I can do? Is this still going ahead, or can I do anything? And it's surprising how often people come back and say, actually, we never did go ahead with that, but we're ready now, or we're looking at doing somebody the next month. And I've got a couple of gigs that way. Or alternatively is saying that final thing didn't go ahead, like their client didn't push it, or we had budget issues. But now we're in a position, or we didn't go ahead with that client, or it wasn't suitable, but we've now got this project. Do you want to have a look at this and give me a quote on this project? So I've actually had a few successes, and I find 6 months is a good period of time. It's so they sort of remember you within time frame, but it's far enough away so you don't seem like such a pest. Like when going bang, 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 like within a week or two.
Yeah. So the 6 monthly follow-up. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. It just has a polite, like, did anything happen with this? Sometimes if it seemed like a really good opportunity, sometimes you can go and have a look at their website, whoever this is, and see if that content thing ever went ahead, if they have a new website. Because sometimes people come to me and say they're going to do a new website, they don't like it, blah, blah, blah. I do the proposal for the copy. Comes back, and then 6 months later look, and they've still got the old website, and you realize that it's never happened. So that's a good thing. And then they say, yeah, actually we've just been so busy, blah blah. And that's sometimes, if you look and you notice that they never did the project that you quoted on, that's sometimes interesting.
Yeah. I think another strategy is, say that you are trying to follow up with someone who's keen but not ready for you yet. It's getting back to that whole, I'm annoying that person. You have to think about it more about like what Ed Gandia from B2B Launcher, he has a great podcast if you haven't listened to it.
It's great.
Yeah. And he calls it keeping the conversation going. So I think that might look like sending them a link to something relevant to them, like a story or a white paper, and just saying, I spotted this and thought you might find it interesting. Hope all's well. So no pressure, no sales, nothing, just being helpful and offering them some value can be a good way of just staying top of mind.
I think so too. And this goes back to LinkedIn. Like often I will comment on LinkedIn or just do a like, depending. You don't want to be gratuitous in your comments. But also I think regularly posting on LinkedIn helps. So I often post, things like our podcast episode. If I have some good clippings and some interesting stuff, I don't know if I post it up, I think I just come up in people's feeds. And also if they're people, the way the LinkedIn algorithm works, if I've commented on their posts and like something, I'm more likely to come up in their feeds if I post, because it shows that we're, connected. So just regularly just saying, this is what I'm doing. And I do find that when I contact people, 6 months later or do a follow-up, people have said, oh yeah, I saw the podcast is doing well, or I see you did some story for, Home Beautiful, or so all those sort of things connect. I mean, I did a piece for, the New York Times, and it's so funny. One of my clients, I followed her up for something, and she said, oh, hello, Ms. New York Times. I thought, I'd never mentioned anything, but she'd seen it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so she suddenly thought, oh, she's cool. She writes for the New York Times.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, if you have a newsletter, like a freelancer newsletter that you send to clients, you can also offer to pop them on that in order to keep them in the loop with what you're up to. But obviously get their permission before you do that. So many people put me on their newsletters and I'm like, what?
Because it's really important. That conversation is important, not to let go. I think Richard talked about that when he talked about it in his podcast episode about sales. So I think that's really good. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I think overall it's hard to give an exact roadmap for following up, as it differs so much depending on the client and where they might be in the timeline of being ready to engage with you or even hire you. But maybe the takeaway is just to make it an essential part of your marketing process. And sometimes I think this will sound daunting, but I think you can be following up for years before you get work out of someone.
Oh, for sure.
But don't think of that in a bad way. Just think about it as, part of a long game. You're planting seeds and kind of nurturing them. And, that is going to bear fruit down the line, I think.
Well, I guess another story that I could share is that there's somebody I connected with. I pitched for a job. Apparently, I was a lot more expensive than other people. They went with other people. That's fine. But this person ended up, she's consulted in a few companies. Now she's gone to a larger company with bigger budgets, and I was the first person she reached out for.
Mm-hmm.
So she just basically, they said they couldn't afford me. I was too expensive, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But when she did get to the company that sort of suited me, she came straight to me, and also it was perfect. It was a really good brand that I was really excited to work on. I think I made 3 proposals over 2 years for her, and it was the 4th proposal with a new company that she finally used me.
Wow, the power of following up, Lynn.
I know, I know. And also back to when you're saying about putting on an email list, if you don't want to do that or you don't have it, one of the best things to do at that initial conversation stage is connect with them on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
That's a legitimate but not stalkery thing to do.
Yep.
It's a bit of a connection. That's all it is. You don't have to push it further. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the podcast this week, but we will pop some resources and further reading in the show notes. So I hope you all enjoyed this and that you are all fired up to follow up.
Yes.
That was a tongue twister.
Nice. That was good. That was good. Yes, follow up. I'm sure, this is a time to go through and make some notes.
Yeah.
Or use your lead generator.
Lead generation tracker. Yeah.
Tracker. That's really good. That's much better. I use that now. It's a much better system than trawling through my old emails.
You really need to look into a filing system for your inbox.
I know.
But that's a whole other podcast episode.
It is. Okay.
All right. Thanks everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.